Hey guys, welcome back to Investment Fund Secrets. Today we've got an awesome guest with us, Jerry Wright. Jerry, welcome onto the show. How are you doing today?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun episode. We're going to talk about fund admins, fund softwares. A lot of people have been asking me the questions, Bridger, how do I, what's the software behind funds? Can I use a fund administrator? What level, what tier do I need to be at before then? So we're going to dive into all that today. Jerry, give us a little brief background on you. I know you've been working in this industry for a long time.
Yep.
At Strata right now, which is an amazing software, amazing firm. Give us a little background on you and your firm.
Yeah, great. So I'm Jerry Wright. I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years. Started off at administrator J.D. Clark, owned by Jeff Clark, and worked there for about 14 years. I did work at UMB for a little bit. So UMB, I became a partner just before we sold to UMB. So I left and I worked for a PE shop for 2 years just to get out of the industry. And then I had to get back, and then I wanted to get back in. So I went to work for Strata. Three of the founders were my good friends that I've known for years. In fact, the president of J.D. Clark hired me back in 2000 at J.D. Clark. And so been trying to get over to Strata for a long time for different reasons, but again, I've been at Strata for the last 4 years, and it's exciting what we're doing right now.
Yeah, okay. This is gonna be a fun episode.
Yeah.
Because we met almost a year ago.
Yeah.
We had lunch with Adam Campbell, who's also, we've had him on the show and stuff you guys have heard. And we sat down and talked for a little bit. And now we finally have been able to land you on this interview. It's taken a while to get you here.
Yeah.
Busy guy. So
Yep.
Let's talk through. A lot of people on this show want to start funds.
Yep.
Want to get in the game there from the ground up. First off, give us the basic baseline. Why a fund administrator and who would use it? And what's the purpose of it?
Yeah. I mean, the reason you'd want to use a fund administrator is that you have investors that want to know when they're giving you money, especially if it's in the closed-end commitment-based space, they're giving you money for 7 years and they don't know what's going on. And, there's a lot of Ponzi schemes that are going on. And so they want to know that there's some independence, a gatekeeper really there to help out. So as a fund administrator, we report capital statements. We do that on a quarterly or monthly basis, depending on the cadence, whether it's open-ended or closed-ended. And again, we're there to do treasury work, making sure that the money is being used properly according to the limited partnership agreement. But yeah, we're really there getting paid by the GP, but working for the investors, making sure that their money
So you'll do, like you said, quarterly statements. Do you guys draft those?
We do.
And make all those statements. So a lot of the paperwork that as a fund manager, you got to quarterly statements, yearly stuff, it'll be put on you.
Yeah.
Essentially,
right?
You guys help do all that. Do you help
do.
manage capital calls, distribution, stuff like that?
We do. I mean, part of that is, when there's a capital call that's due, I mean, we have the software that will actually create the allocations in it. So we use InvestTrend. It creates the allocations, and then on the reporting side, we do custom capital call notices that we send to investors through a secure portal data exchange. So we get involved there. We work with the GP to make sure that they are calling for enough capital, not only to fund their investment, but also for other expenses. We're really there. I mean, we're the trusted advisor of our clients, but also we have great software and then great ways to communicate investment information to your limited partners.
Okay, this is great to know, because I get this question a ton. If you guys think back to what I share a lot with people is the 3 circles of a fund. You have this is really basic, but expert investor, this is your chief investment officer person. You have your money raiser, it's the person that has well network, and then you have kind of your fund admin circle. I just put it as a circle, and that could be the person chief that's compliance, that's legal, that's accounting, that's all that kind of stuff. You guys take a lot of that work away.
We do.
Yeah. And it's awesome. And you mentioned as well, it verifies for your investors.
Yeah. The independence is important. I mean, again, especially you read a lot about Ponzi schemes. I mean, there was one a year ago that I looked at and learned a little bit about, and it was clear that it was a Ponzi scheme, and it came out in the paper. But yeah, we're there. And again, if your investor trusting you with so much money and to have that money for so much time, they want someone independent. And
a lot of times, institutional investors will require you to have a third party. They say, hey, because sometimes a small fund, you say, we don't have one, we just do it in-house, right? But other times when you get to bigger institutions, they say, no, that's one of our due diligence things we need to require that you have someone like Jerry on, externally that can verify these accounts and just almost be a third party double check so that you're not doing a Ponzi scheme for the next 7-10 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at kind of where the industry's been on the hedge fund side, prior to Bernie Madoff, about 60% of hedge funds had an administrator. And then right after, within that year of Bernie Madoff, that number jumped to 90% in the open-end space, in the hedge fund space. Now you look at where things are at right now in the closed-end space. They're not there yet, right? They're about 40% adopted, but you're starting to see a lot more adoption in the UK, and we're starting to see a lot more people that are as institutional money comes in, they really want to see that there's an administrator there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, now I want to ask you. So when is it appropriate to get a fund administrator? What level, what AUM do you need to be at? And then are there different tiers of administrators? Is there like an entry level administrator? Is there a mid tier? Walk us through that process.
Spot on. I'm glad you asked that question. So you definitely, if you don't have enough assets, like if you're looking to run a fund, friends and family money, you have a couple $1 million, I would not get a fund administrator. I would try to do things in-house. Now, what I would do is it's important to have a PCAOB audit firm actually look at your
PCAOB,
financials.
what does that mean?
Shoot, you put me on the spot. I've got to think about it's the public, I'll have to think about it later.
But what does it mean? Yeah.
So it's just an auditor that has registered that is that is a bona fide auditor.
Oh,
here
okay,
in the US.
gotcha.
I can't remember the exact what that acronym stands for, but
kind of like a CPA certification, but for auditors.
It's a certification that audit firms have to go through. So they have their CPAs and then they get this certification as well. So you want to have a PCOB audit firm do the work. And then again, that's your track record. And so that's even more important than an administrator. I should be talking about why an administrator is so important, but really the first thing that if you only have enough money for one of the two, I would definitely get the audit, because that's you're doing a little bit more, administrators do a little bit more compilation work where they're just taking the data that you're giving them, the information that you're giving them, and putting it in a good format. Obviously there's cash controls and other things. But what the auditors do is they're verifying everything. So they're verifying every investment. They're looking at the pricing to make sure that's right. And so that's your track record. Your audit is your track record.
Which is funny. We talk about Bernie Madoff.
Yeah.
Bernie in 30 years never had an audit.
Never. Well, yeah.
Right? I think at least that's my understanding was never. And if an investor asked for one, he said, well, if you want an audit, just go somewhere else. And that I believe has changed a lot since Bernie Madoff of every firm, and a lot of firms, LPAs and PPMs will say, hey, we do a yearly audit.
Yeah.
Every year we have an external auditor come in, we pay the LP pays for it, limited partnership or GP, depending on what you're running. They will pay for it, do the whole audit just to double check everything, which I think is a good point. Is before a fund administrator, make sure to do an audit.
Yeah.
I think it's wise. It's wise counsel.
If you only have enough for one, for sure, do the audit. Okay,
so back to the fund administrator though. Okay,
yeah.
Let's say we've got enough money for an audit.
Yep.
And we're over friends and family. We're over a couple $1 million.
Yep.
And what is the minimum, would you say?
I mean, there are administration firms that if you had $6 million, there's some smaller firms that can do the work for you that are not institutional friendly like we are, that don't have the infrastructure in place, so that have saved some money. You can certainly go with a group like that if you're $6-7 million. I would say over $15 million is where you start to look for a bona fide administrator that has infrastructure, will make you institutional friendly, and will make it so that you can check the boxes on the DDQ, that you can rely on that administrator for your privacy policy, your disaster recovery policy, your SOC 1, all of that, the controls, that's where you can really go out and look for institutional investors.
So is there a lot of insurance you guys provide?
We do. We have insurance.
You guys have insurance, okay,
we do have insurance, and that's something you want from an administrator, for sure.
So $6 million, it's kind of when you start thinking about it.
$6 million is where,
But 15, you're saying, hey, you know what, you're probably getting to somewhere where you can start thinking about administrator.
A good bona fide administrator.
Good bona fide administrator,
about
okay.
$15 million, yep.
Now, that's kind of your entry level. Where's the next tier, would you say?
The next tier, as far as like,
and I want to ask you too. You said a bona fide administrator.
Yep.
Are there different tiers of administrator? Is that just kind of like, hey, that's like the one, once you're there. They're all about the same. They just have pros and cons, or is there a much better exclusive administrator?
No, so 100%. So the tiers, I mean, when you look at the tiers, there's this smaller boutique administration firm that, you're looking at, if you have $5 million, they're doing things in Excel. It's one person kind of doing all the work on the account. There's not a maker checker process. So you see that. The mid-tier boutique administrator, that's kind of where Strata is right now. So we have about 200 employees, 220 employees. We have about 100 billion in assets under administration, about 900 funds that we work on. That's your mid-tier administrator. And as long as that mid-tier administrator has the processes in place, has a SOC 1. We have a SOC 1 by BDOC that they do every year, showing that we have controls in place, that we're living by those controls. So it's a type 2.
SOC 1 meaning?
SOC 1, it's a SOC 1 is just the control audit that they do.
The audit that they come into, okay.
Yeah. And so you want to make sure they have a SOC 1. You want to make sure that their software is robust. I mean, I worked at a PE shop one time where we sent capital statements to an administrator, and they had to rename those PDFs, and they put it on their portal. There's no controls there, right? And so they were off by one line item, so every investor received another investor statement. You can't have that happen.
Shoot,
so
yeah.
Again, with your mid-tier that has the infrastructure in place, you're not going to worry about that. And then there's the top tier. I mean, there's the State Streets, SS&C, Citcos, the larger groups that you really institutionalize. You're going into their process. They're functionalized, and so you have different groups that will do different reporting, different financial accounting, and that's more of you go into their process, and they're not going to customize to your needs.
So Strata, back to you guys. What is you're saying mid-tier? What is that range of AUM?
It's a good question. I would say mid-tier, probably anywhere from 50 billion, to
50 billion or
50
million?
billion
50 billion
in assets under administration, to probably like 500 billion in assets under administration. That's your mid-tier.
That's your mid-tier.
Yeah.
But for a fund manager, for me to come to you,
oh yeah,
how much AUM for that?
Yeah, so for that, again, as long as you're, I would say 20 million, 15 to 20 million.
Okay, good, because I thought you were saying
no,
you gotta have. I was like, wow, that's legit. Okay,
so I think you're asking the administrator, like, what is a mid-tier administrator?
Yeah. So a mid-tier fund coming to you, 20 million.
Yeah. I mean, over 20 million.
Over 20 million. Okay.
Yeah.
And then is there
up to about $1 billion, and then that's at about $1 billion. That's where you're a larger.
Probably want to go maybe to a bigger one.
No. Yeah, you'd still use us for sure. You'd still use Strata for that. But I'm just saying that. You may have, if you're a $5 billion shop, a $10 billion shop, you may have an institutional investor that may require you to have like a higher, a top tier administrator, like a top 10 administrator size wise.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so low tier, 6 million to 15, maybe up there. You guys are more in the 30 million to about $1 billion range. 30
million to $1 billion, but we certainly have, I'd say, 10 funds that are over $1 billion, so 10 groups that we work with.
Maybe $5-10 billion in that range. Cool. And then above that, okay, I like that. That helps me understand the tiers of where you can think about for someone like me shopping around for administrators. So now, if you're okay with that, I'd love to ask about costs.
Yeah, for sure.
What are the costs for those tiers?
Yeah.
What are you expected to pay, and how do you pay? Is it AUM? Is it a monthly fee? What does that look like?
I mean, there's different tiers there and there's different service levels, so it's hard to give you an exact price. I mean, there's some groups where we're doing a lot of compliance work. There's some groups that require us to do, FATCA, AML that have a lot of blockers, a lot of in place for feeders, and so it really just depends on the the complexity. But I would say like a venture capital, like a $20 million venture capital firm, it's probably about $30,000 that we're charging for a year.
A year, $30,000
for
a
that
year.
fund, and so that would include like a custom portal. It would include all the reporting that we typically do, and you have access to our privacy policy, SOC 1. You can rely on us for to be institutional quality or institutional ready, I guess.
That's not bad. Yeah, about $2,500 a month.
Yeah,
somewhere in that range,
something like that.
And then obviously, you guys, like you said, it's hard to say because you have so many services, so many products that go into there.
That's a hard.
But that's a ballpark number, that's $30,000 a year. But it can go up for a small. But and then let's say $1 billion fund.
Yeah.
What can the price range go to?
I mean, $1 billion fund. I mean, it could be anywhere from 2 to 4 basis points. Assets, or actually looking at capital, really invested capital.
Invested capital.
2 to 4 bips on invested capital for $1 billion. Group.
That's kind of how they price it, is off basis points of capital.
Yeah, I mean, what we have to do, so what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish is we're looking at the resources that it takes to do the work. And so if we think it's going to take like 1 FTE, so that could be like 20% of 5 people, so 1 FTE, we're going to look at probably making a couple $100,000 for that for that work. And so where it needs to be variable is that these fund lives, especially if you're looking at the closed-end commitment-based space, I mean, they start off ramping up, right? And then they hit their peak, they're investing, and then they go into harvest mode, and it starts to wind back down. So we look for a variable rate that can grow as the fund grows, and then also shrink as the fund is in harvest.
Gotcha. Okay. And for people listening too, you might be saying that, well, there's no way I'd ever pay $300,000 for a fund administrator. But that's the beautiful thing about a fund is you have all the money, right? And you can scale, and they're helping you get institutional investors way more money. It is a total investment. And you might be sitting there, no way I'd even pay $30,000 a year for that. But at the same time, if they can make your statements, make investors feel more comfortable about investing in you, I mean, it's a lay down sale. It's like, oh, by all means, we should do that. There's a reason these guys have really profitable businesses and do very well and have lots of clients, is because it really is a huge benefit to funds.
Yeah, and I think what you need to also realize is that at a $1 billion PE shop, chances are you're going to have a lot of blockers, you're going to have JV entities, you're going to have a feeder fund. There's probably going to be 30 entities that you're going to track, and so it's more work than just one fund when you get to that scale, because you're bringing on foreign investors, you're trying to reduce the amount of tax leakage, and you're setting up different structures, strategically, so you can do that. And so that's where an administrator, having that knowledge, understanding how things work, that's where it makes a lot of sense to hire an administrator.
So I want to ask you a little bit too. So administrator, you guys are helping hands-on, helping do all the stuff we just talked about. Are there fund softwares that you can use as well, or in tandem with an administrator?
Yep.
What are some of those softwares, and how can you use them? And what would you, if you have some suggestions for good ones, or people that can come through Strata and, things, softwares that you like, do you have any of those?
Yeah, it's interesting because, you've got the $1 billion to $5 billion shop, and then you have the startup, the emerging managers. And there's no way that I'd ever recommend that an emerging manager license any software, because it's just too expensive. They're better off hiring an administrator that you can utilize the same exact software. You can get it all for a lot cheaper. So you're not only getting the software, but you're also getting someone with knowledge, a team with knowledge that's doing your work. So I'd never recommend that a smaller shop look at licensing any software. Just doesn't make any sense. Now,
but what you're saying is we can come to you, Strata, and you've already licensed 10, I don't know how many softwares. And they get access to all that through that.
They whatever we're using for them, because a lot of the software that we license is purpose built for certain types of groups, and so, for them it'd probably be InvestTran with Data Exchange. They'd be able to utilize it and have read-only access if they wanted to. They could, everything that's available to us, it can be available to them as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So that's what you would say. Come, instead of just doing
For
one
sure.
at a time. Gotcha.
100%. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, are there what do those softwares do? You said 20 softwares. And that's the stuff you guys use to just organize things? A little more robust than Excel?
Right.
Or are they all sorts of stuff?
So they're all sorts of stuff. If you think about, we have hedge funds that we work on. About 20% of our funds are hedge funds. With these hedge funds, we use Geneva as our portfolio system. So Geneva can recalculate like corporate actions, dividend accruals. Like it tracks your, it can pipe into IDC or Bloomberg to get pricing for your equities. So that's definitely, one of the software that we use. Data Exchange and is the portal that we use along with InvestTran for most of our accounting. That's a general ledger and our portal system. We also work with other groups though as well. Adapar is a software that we license and we use for better reporting. Sometimes there's board quality reporting that's needed, and so we can get that through Adapar. We work with groups like Cobalt on the portfolio monitoring side. So if you have a venture fund, you want to know what the financials look like, what the KPIs for their companies that they're invested in. Cobalt helps you really. It's a tool that it will reach out to those companies and then pull information back that you can do reporting on those individual companies, and then consolidated reporting as well, but our aggregated reporting as well.
So yeah, a lot of different stuff for different business types
that's right.
too, fund types. So I want to ask you this question too.
Okay.
Is there certain types of funds that at different tiers should use an administrator versus not? Like you mentioned a hedge fund a couple times.
Yeah.
I feel like a $30 million hedge fund is way different than a $30 million PE fund that has 3 portfolio companies.
Yeah.
Right. So what fund types at a younger age would use a fund administrator versus other fund types? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Once you can afford an administrator, I'd always recommend using an administrator. On the hedge fund side, it would be really hard on the hedge fund side to do things in-house yourself. 90%, again, like I said before, 90% of the industry has adopted a fund administrator on the hedge fund side, the open-ended side. So if you don't have an administrator, chances are it's going to be a lot harder raising capital. On the venture PE side, it's amazing. I don't think that they think of an administrator like they do on the open-end side. So on the close-end side, it's they only think about it if they have to. And again, like 40% right now has adopted the outsource administration model. A lot of these groups that are even larger on the VC PE side are doing things in-house. Some of the biggest PE shops that we know today are doing work in-house. And
interesting.
And part of that is just there was less institutional money at first. And so there wasn't really the investors that were driving PE and venture to use a fund administrator. And it's just been over time where now it's becoming more accepted. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. An open-ended hedge fund, a lot more calculations, a lot more stuff versus a pretty simple buyout fund if we're buying one asset. Yeah, which makes sense, right? Very interesting. So you guys do all the above. Now, if someone wanted to contact your team or to learn more about Strata, what is a good way to find you guys?
So we're definitely on the website, so you can go to stratafs.com and you can contact us that way. You can certainly reach out to me. I can leave my contact information with you. But yeah, we're around. You'll see us. And in fact, if you go, we've increased our SEO services. And so if you're to go online, go to Google and look at fund administrator, we're probably one of the top 10 that pop up. So
you guys have been fast growing.
Yeah,
Strata has. I've watched you guys over the last year and a half, 2 years.
It's
take off.
Been crazy,
and it's been crazy. I'm going to talk not just business here too. It's a business podcast, whatever. What do you think is attributed to that growth?
It's just our people. So our people do such a good job, and it's really been the partners too. If you look at the partners, and one of the reasons why I came over to Strata is that they understood the importance of human capital and combined with technology as well. I mean, we have 14 people that are IT people, so non-accountants that work at Strata. They understood that, with having the right people, right human beings doing the work, and then right technology, that it would sell itself. And what we really have come across, if you look at our clients, our growth right now, we're growing about 40% year over year, and really that's coming from our clients. I mean, it's been word of mouth. I've been involved the last 4 years, but I'm not outbound. I mean, I'm just taking inbound calls, and we have developed in the last 4 months. We started this sales group that we started, but we haven't done any outbound to date. It's just been all reputation, and that means a lot for us.
Wow, that's cool. This is the first outbound right here.
Yeah,
there it is.
This is here.
There it is. We're ready.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, Jerry, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was awesome. I know we've been trying to connect for a long time. Finally got you on here. And for people, again, if they want to reach out to you, how do they find you one last time?
You go to the website. So it's stratafs.com is the website. You can certainly reach out to me. In fact, I can give you my cell phone number. If you need to get a hold of anyone, it's 801-707-4900. And we do have a business development team now. It's not just me, so that's great. But you can always reach out to me on my cell anytime.
Live on the call with a cell phone number. There it is. I'll put the contact below and stuff on this page, wherever you're looking at this video. So, Jerry, thanks again for coming on.
Thank you.
We might have to have you back in a couple months because Strata's growing so much. You guys are adding so many things, and so we'll have you back. But thank you again.